Hey guys, it's the Fort Worth Glock guy, and I wanted to do a update to this cool little knife from Spyderco, and this would be the Techno if you didn't know. I've been playing with this off and on for about 3 weeks or so. Last week I really tried to break it in because it is kind of it's a little bit harder to flip, and I think part of that is just the design of it, and maybe the expectations of being able to like flick it open like you do a lot of other Spydercos maybe just is not realistic. I'm not sure, but in that break-in period I did notice a few little things that kind of I wanted to talk about. And before I get to the cons, I would say the pros to this knife it's a long list. This is an absolutely great knife. The size of it is great size. What I like most about it is just, I don't want to say the simplicity of it, but there's not a whole lot to it other than the knife itself. And as you can see, like the way the finish is very consistent all the way throughout. It's like this stone wash finish on the handle blades or on the handle scales and the blade itself. It's very consistent all the way through. And that's what I really like about this knife. It's like the attention to detail on this. And it's just a great little knife. And I don't know if you can tell or not, but I've done a little stropping on it. I haven't had to do too much work to it because it came from the factory extremely sharp. So I've just kind of maintained this on the strop. And I may have done a little bit of work to it on the Lansky sharp maker, but not a whole lot. This is really held up really well. So as far as pocket carry, it is a deep pocket clip, so it rides extremely low. I mean, you don't see very much at all in your pocket. It is a little bit heavier, but that, again, in my opinion, for a little knife like this, I'm okay with that, because this is designed to be a hard use knife, and it has been just that. I mean, it's the thickness of it. And let me give you kind of a comparison. I've got a Sage here in the background. I'll give you a little comparison too, because the Sage is actually a pretty decent size blade stock. But this one is like, I don't want to say twice as thick, but it is significantly thicker than the Sage on the blade stock. So, I mean, it is in every way a hard use knife, even though it is little. And again, it fits with that stone wash finish. It really doesn't show a whole lot of wear. You can beat it up pretty good and it just blends in to that stone wash. I mean, it's a great design. The coolest feature I think is just that blue backspacer. It really makes the knife really stand out. It's just a beautiful knife. Now, the only couple things that I would kind of ding on this as far as negatives go, you can see the lane, or the opening hole here. It sits kind of deep in that little cutout, which is not a problem. That, to me, is not a problem at all. Here's opening. Here's where the problem lies. Right here. If you're opening and closing this a lot, like I've been doing this past week, trying to get the pivot to loosen up a little bit, that hole goes right up against the edge of the handles right there. And to me, that kind of rubs against your thumb and irritates it if you're constantly opening and closing like I've been trying to break in this blade. And I just noticed, there's a little bit of a hot spot right there because it cuts so close to that opening hole that, it does kind of rub against your thumb. Now, if you're just flicking it open one time, it's not a big deal. So, I mean, that's kind of a minor deal, but as you can see, I mean, it does come right up against where that opening hole is, right there. And, when you are opening it, it does rub right up against your thumb. So that is kind of one negative. The other negative is on the reverse side. As you can see, where my ring finger is right here, underneath that is the cutout. And the cutout is for the lock bar. Okay? And to me, I think if they had done kind of what they did with the Sage series, and see the Sage is flat all the way across and the cutout is actually on the inside. If they had done that on this, that would reduce another hot spot because, like, again, this week I've been really trying to work in this blade and get it smoother. So I've been doing this a whole lot. So I've noticed that hot spot right there, and then where my finger lies right there against where those cutouts are, that's another tiny little hot spot. And again, if you're just using this, pull it out of your pocket, open it up, use it, close it back up, put it in your pocket again, you won't even notice that. But for me this week, I've really tried to, work this blade in. There's a hot spot right there, and then on the reverse side, that's exactly where my ring finger lies, is right on that edge. And that edge is a little bit squared. So it does create a little bit of a lock, a hot spot. And again, if they had done the cutout on the inside instead of the outside, then it would have solved that problem right there. Now, that being said, that also gives you a little bit extra traction too, because that is where my ring finger lies. And if I'm holding it in this particular grip, my first finger kind of in that little choil there, then it kind of gives you a little bit extra traction on the outside to grip onto. So I don't know, maybe that was the function of having the cutout on the outside instead of the inside. If I were to make a slight improvement, I would want to see that cutout reversed, so it was on the inside instead of the outside. But beyond that, those are the only two minor little things that I've found about this knife. Everything else about it I love. I love the cutting surface, how it goes almost all the way to where the pivot is. I mean, it's just a great design. Flicking it at this point is not really easy to do, and again, this pivot is still kind of tight, and I'm not sure you're really supposed to be flicking this style knife anyways. It can be done. What's different about being able to flick this knife as opposed to some of the other Spydercos is the opening hole is further away from the pivot and it's more out. So like for instance on this knife, if I wanted to flick it, I flick it more in an upwards motion, like just straight up, and it flicks open. This, since the opening hole is so close to the pivot, you can't really do that. Like I cannot flick it straight up like I do most other Spydercos. This one, to flick it, you almost have to go sideways, like to the left. So if I do it that way, I can flick it open. It's just a slight variation on how you do it, but it can be done. It's just not quite as smooth as some of the others. And again, I don't think this knife was really designed to do that. I know there are a lot of people out there that have gotten their pivot loosened up. I did try and loosen up the pivot, but then it put it off center, and so I tightened it right back up, and it is dead center. So I want to keep it that way, and if that means I can't flick it, I'm okay with that, because most of the time I don't flick my knives anyways, especially one like this. So, but it can be done. I'm just having to do more of this motion instead of up. So You can see I'm kind of going out like that. And on this one, I'm going more up. So it's just a different motion. Again, it can be done. But anyways, just wanted to offer my second thought on this now that I've had some time to get more acquainted with it and use it a little bit more. It is a awesome little knife. And this is one that, you know, if I buy, sell, trade knives, which I do, I don't think this one is going out of my collection anytime soon. There would have to be something that comes along that is significantly. It would just have to pique my interest a lot more than this one does. And for right now, this one is. These are my two go-to carry knives that I use. I mean, one of these is always on me when I can carry. So, anyways, just wanted to give you a second thought on this Techno, and it is an awesome little knife. So all the hype that you've heard, it's real. It's a great knife. There's the lockup on it. And it hasn't budged since the day I got it. Beautiful knife. Forward with the Clock Guy. Out.